right? So your brand, your personal brand, your company brand, if they get on the pod, or any other pod, not just my pod, right? So your brand gets to capture the audience, get to build their brand loyalty. They know what you stand for, they know what you speak, and they know your values as well.
That's an element of storytelling. That's like a hook to take your attention, and then getting through the arc of attention, and then ending the story with something delightful, surprising. So that's really storytelling, and that's something that that I think like everybody needs to master now.
People will not search on Google so much anymore. They will start searching on AI. So if you want your brand to be AI proof, to be ChatGPT proof, make sure you're featured in publications. In the end of the day, how to stand out in today's world are
from today, and a lot of the speakers have talked about how to get customers, how to get leads, kind of everything up until getting someone through the door. But what is really important is then how do you get them to stay in the door? How do you get them to remain loyal? So I'm just going to quickly get Quinn to introduce herself because you haven't met Quinn yet. So Quinn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So hi everyone, my name is Quinn. I come from Singapore. I work for Meiro, which is a company whose mission is to help our clients to do more and optimize their own customer data. So all of our clients collect so much of their customer data, and to your point, building brand loyalty is all about being very smart about how you work with your customer data to deliver excellent personalization experience for them, to surprise and delight. So that's usually the topics of discussion with my clients. I will also have the last panel speech for the day, so I'll talk more about that. And in that's my day job. And other than that, I also volunteer for She Loves Data as an organization whose mission is to bring more diversity to tech digital data. So as you can tell, I really breathe and sleep data. So everything that I'm going to bring into this discussion is really coming from that perspective.
Awesome. So I'm going to kick things off with the first question, and we're going to see how many questions we can get through in about 40 minutes. So the first one, and Quinn, I'll ask you, and then we'll switch over to Bob as well. What do you think when today's world, we're very, very hyper-connected. We have all these different ways of keeping in touch with brands and friends and family. What do you think are some of the key things that everyone here should keep in mind when it comes to building brand loyalty? Big question.
Huge question to start with. Look, I think building brand loyalty, for me, maybe not even like a component, but a prerequisite is excellence in service and in product. That's like a prerequisite. You can't even go without. So that's the obvious thing, but it needs to be called out. And that's something that resonated with me when, recently when you might have heard in the news that, SIA as, a Singaporean brand, Singaporean Airlines, that had, went through a really turbulent, I think one of the worst in their history, huge turbulence that resulted in death and a lot of people actually getting injured. They were super quick to provide compensation, or even before compensation, to provide support to people, right? And there were actually, customers generated kind of comments on social media about how SIA stewardesses and stewards were, those who were even injured, were actually still supporting customers and customers first. So that was something for me that really resonated with me, because that's really their people living and breathing the brand. So it goes back to, I think, loyalty first and foremost is about that excellence in products and service, without which I think there's only so much that your branding can go as far as, supporting that brand image. And then beyond that, there's, of course, a lot of things that goes into it, that authenticity, that brand values, because nowadays we have so many choices. For any product and service you can think of, there's nothing that really is unique anymore. There's so many choices. So ultimately, a lot of the purchase decisions that we have is an emotional one. We have a lot of resources, we also have a lot of choices. So a lot of purchases is going to be an emotional one. So I think it boils down to what brands resonates with me at an emotional level in terms of their storytelling, in terms of what values they stand for. So for me, that's that. Yeah.
I think as well, Bob, when I saw you were on this panel, I was like, it'll be quite interesting because there's customers and then there's followers as well.
Yeah.
And there's probably a lot of learnings from like why people follow someone like yourself or other people you work with, kind of similar to why people are loyal to a brand. Is there any kind of crossover between the learnings from why people would keep following you to get your content versus why someone would engage with a brand continually?
Yeah, I like Quinn's point. I think the key word here is values. So in today's world, like we buy stuff, we consume a lot of things. There's a lot of things we consume. We make decisions without knowing it. We buy a lot of things that we forgot we bought. But in the end of the day, how to stand out in today's world are the values. So in KL today, you can see a growing number of Teslas, a lot of new Tesla cars on the road compared to last year. And most people would say, oh, I resonate because it has that conservational and also sustainability part to it. So how to stand out in brands today, if I resonate with the value, then I would stay on. And I remember and say because, and share to people, I drive a Tesla because of this. So yes, customer experience and brand value as well. It keeps you loyal to the brand. And that story that you said, storytelling, people remember that story as well.
Well, they're just a big Elon Musk fan. maybe not. Okay, so kind of on the same topic, and Quinn, I'll pop over to you because I know Bob has spoken a lot about social media earlier. Do you have any advice to how people can use social media to foster brand loyalty? Is that something you do? Is that something you've seen done well? Is there any tips you can share with us?
Right. So truth be told, that on a personal level, for me, I have really learned the power of social media, right? Connecting with people. And for me, social media is LinkedIn, connecting with people and getting both learning and building my network. But taking it from a larger perspective, I think, again, I go back to like values and authenticity, which is like such a big word and sometimes it can be fluffy. But I think it shines through in how brands represent themselves and talk about what they do, right? And other than that, I think with social media, what I have seen a lot of, or some of the clients that I work with, what they have done well is really to adapt new things because again, social media is a very noisy space now. What some of my clients have done well is really thinking of a two-tier stage where social media is really where you build your reach. Right, that's where you with their algorithm, you are reaching out ultimately to people who may never even have heard of you. So, great content that are shareable, UGC, user-generated content is gonna get the attention and, it could go viral and it could bring you to eyeballs that you have never managed to reach before. And then the second tier to that is I have seen clients who leverage on social media, but on your own channel. So social media is like a rented audience, right? It's not yours. So how you're going to, but it has the skill and the reach. So how you bring back into your own first, what we call in the data digital space, is your own first party channel, which is your mobile app and your website. So I have seen clients use tools such as, Glued In, which is like TikTok in a box. So you basically have your user-generated content on your own mobile app and foster a community there. So that's like, bringing the rented audience into your own channel and build that community and start to build that more engagement because social media is where you find the people. Your own channel is where you really develop that deep connection. Yeah, so that was, I think, really interesting innovation.
Yeah. And Bob, you shared quite a lot of very, very good insights around building a network on LinkedIn and using it for that. Do you have anything to add in terms of, cool, you've got a network, whether for yourself or clients?
Yeah.
How do you use social media to build loyalty?
Yeah, so social media, I'm doing it right now. So this camera's in front. My guy Elton is taking photos. How many panel sessions have you attended they are recorded or not recorded, nobody sees it. Like you said, it goes somewhere, a YouTube channel, nobody knows. So all of you are brand leaders, brand ambassadors, brand leaders, brand owners as well. So you do a lot of speeches, you do a lot of panel sessions. When are you recording this? This can be TikTok, this can be YouTube. If we have the capacity, we'll do TikTok. But this will be a podcast. So wherever you get the chance, document, do videos out of it. I think the Mindzallera have done a lot of sessions, but not recorded. So a lot of gold, don't know where it is, stuck in the mind. So this will be recorded. This will be on YouTube, will be on LinkedIn as well. I'll put this onto LinkedIn. So when it comes to social media, let me plug the podcast as well. So yes, you can post images, your LinkedIn brand pages, company pages can post, you can network, you can collaborate with people, but talk to me. I can get you on the podcast and share, like Quinn just shared a lot of value, a lot of gold. But if she did not say it here, nobody knows. So when I put this video out onto YouTube, when I put this video out onto LinkedIn, people know, oh yeah, Quinn is very insightful. I should work with a company, with a brand, or even hire her. We don't know what happened. But if you don't put yourself out there, and the reason why I'm so into podcasting is, of course, in Malaysia, there's one podcast that right now is trailblazing and we're catching the fire. But it also gives you that personal way. Like if you didn't talk to me, you don't know I talk like this. You didn't meet Quinn today. So a podcast lets you do that at scale, right? So your brand, your personal brand, your company brand, your CEO, your CFO, your Chief Sustainability Officer, if they get on the pod, or any other pod, not just my pod, right? So your brand gets to capture the audience, get to build their brand loyalty. They know what you stand for. They know what you speak, and they know your values as well.
Hey everyone, producer Elton here. We share stories from business leaders in Asia, and if this video brought you any value, hit the subscribe button down below, like and share with your friends. Thank you.
And a follow-up question, and both of you can answer this. Do you get a lot of kind of feedback, engagement, whether it is the podcast or whether through working and putting things out there? When you do get feedback, because people love to complain online, that Singapore Airlines is a good example of, I've seen the opposite side. So in Australia, all of the news about that has been negative, about how badly Singapore Airlines handled it, that the compensation's not enough, like it's been really, really negative. So it's interesting to hear a positive
interesting
spin.
and also interesting to think about what kind of social media and also main media we have been consuming in different countries and what the narrative is there, right?
Yeah.
So take it with a grain of salt as well.
Yeah, definitely. But I think, that kind of, for me, I think about like if people are giving us feedback or they're commenting on things or they're literally getting in touch with us and saying, hey, I had this experience. Like, what do we do with that? How can we use that to our advantage to foster better brand loyalty?
Oh, absolutely. I think feedback is a great opportunity, and it depends on how you really use that. I'm biased, so I have example of how us as a company in Meiro kind of deal with that, and I have a counter example as well. So Meiro, if you're unfamiliar, we are a business to business software as a service company. So our clients are usually corporates that has a lot of customer data and they need to figure out what to do with them, right? So obviously we get a lot of feedback, usually through more like direct channel. We have never really gotten like public tag on X or something, but we have had customer review that are not stellar, right? And I think we have just very openly responded to that, connect to the person directly. Hey, we would love to hear more from you. This is important. We embrace that. That's the first step. But I think the second step to that as well, and this was specifically to just lack of certain features, I think. Specifically, it's what happens after that is a follow-up to when that feature was ready and to feedback to the customer, hey, we worked on it. It was missing, now it is. So that's something that we would do anyway. Building the feature, but just really authentically showcase our commitment to delivering. That's something that I think ultimately is important and something that you can use that opportunity to demonstrate your commitment to excellence. I have had actually companies that maybe I have had encountered companies that perhaps have not had the best example of dealing with negative feedback. So we used to use a certain project management tool as the whole company. So we used to use that. And one day I actually received an email that notified us about a data breach. And by nature, I work with customer data all day. And I'm grilled by my clients on how we protect customer data. So we take this very seriously. Now we are at the side of the customer, and now you're telling me that my data is breached and my email and even our company information, our project information is out there, right? And in this email, it actually says we are sorry for the minor breach. This data is already kind of leaked, and there's no offer of what's going to happen, how we're going to recover from that. I was mad, right? So I didn't go to X, I went to LinkedIn, because that's where I can find the CEO. I actually I wrote on my personal LinkedIn, but I tagged the CEO and say, first of all, how can you say that this is a minor breach? Even if you lose one customer data, that's important. I want you to take it seriously, and I want you to offer and tell us what's going to happen. Now, there's a twist in this story. Even this particular message the message to me turned out to be from the hacker. It's not from the CEO, because even their data was actually lost, right? So I was hot-headed and I was mad. However, the response from the CEO was not ideal, because when the CEO wrote back, replying on my social media post, what he said was, our data was lost as well. This is not our fault. It was the fault of the hacker. And so for me, I know he must have been in a difficult situation, but pushing the blame on someone else and not taking your responsibility in the matter, which is you did not protect your data, you lost your customer data, and you lost your own team's data in the first place, that was a misstep, right? So for me, feedback, incidents, it's really about owning your responsibility in the matter and overcorrect it, right? Doesn't matter whose fault it is. What is your contribution to that, and what you could have done differently? So that story could have really turned out differently, because I have had brands that have unfortunately breached data, and I continue to be a customer. So I know that it's recoverable. But it really depends on how you take that opportunity, either to raise to the challenge or it destroys you. Yeah.
That's what I think the best rule someone ever gave me with community management is just say sorry. Just take responsibility and say sorry, and it will always go better than trying to over-explain and shift the blame. Bob, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of corporate communications people in the room. So taking responsibility is an important word. I think for the PR people, you would say this before you get to feedback, before you say sorry, it is about controlling the narrative. So a lot of, pitching the pod again. So a lot of business leaders do get on my pod before shit happens. So you are transparent, you share that responsibility. We are taking these steps to ensure the security of our data. But if anything happens, we'll improve it. So you say it before it happens, and you control the narrative. So if it happens, we have taken all these steps, and we are working on this one. Maybe we missed this, but we are working on this one. But you control the narrative by saying it out first. Yeah. These are the steps we're taking. Like just now, Quinn said, we take very high value on our data. So now it's recorded and we'll quote you. So anyway, so you control the narrative, you say it out first, and if anything happens like Singapore Airlines, whatever it happens, you will be the first one to say it out before you start responding. If you rely on responding, you are on the defensive. Be on the offensive. Take control of the narrative.
Have you, this is not a planned question, but I'm interested. I get to ask my own questions.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a situation on a podcast where a guest that you've had has said something that's out of your control, and they've maybe said something problematic, or they've said something that has got some negative backlash?
I'm curious too.
I've had over 100 episodes already. So far, no. So far, no. We have announced even court cases in the pod. We've had the Competition Commission announce court cases, And then it went to appeal, and then the client just said, oh, we don't want to talk about it anymore. Okay, we have a lot, don't talk about it anymore. But so far, we have not got into trouble for anything. We have ex-politicians, we have CEOs. I think the prep is very important to prep before a podcast to ensure there's no, we avoid anything that's not supposed to be said.
Yeah. I thought that was going to be a good story.
I wish.
All right, I'm going to just change direction for a second. Yeah. And Quinn, I'll ask you this. I know Nicole spoke earlier. I don't think Nicole was here. Oh, yeah, there you go. Nicole spoke earlier about personalization, and was saying, it can be something really simple like just a name and an email, and how that kind of helps people have a bit more connection with the brand. So how do you think personalization, in your opinion, can be really, really helpful in building connections and loyalty and fostering that?
Oh yes, absolutely. Look, personalization is everything, because if you think about the evolution of marketing, a bit longer answer to your question, but marketing used to be mass comm, right? It used to be the day, maybe even before we were born, when it's just radio, right? One to many, many, many. And then it evolved into a little bit more kind of tailored, and then segmentation. So the latest was like persona, like Bob, the businessman, 20 to 40 years old male, or Laurie, the stay-at-home mom, that kind of persona. And now with the advent of customer data, personalization has taken on a new meaning, which is really like a combination of so many things. The right messaging at the right channel where I'm at, with the right kind of offer, taking into the context what I'm doing right now. So that's where, done in a very good way, that can really surprise and delight customers. When I feel like a brand understands me so well, that it gives me exactly the right kind of offer. Now there's a very fine balance in there, because when we talk about personalization, directly what the other side of the coin is data. You need customer data. You need to know who they are, what they prefer, what they have, how they have interacted with your brand, and then what they are doing right now. Are they researching? Are they returning? Are they complaining on Twitter? To be able to personalize that experience. So you need data, right? So that immediately goes into the discussion of how much data is enough, and there's privacy involved. There's customer data protection involved. So I think the right brand that delivers personalization, there's a fine balance. If you do it right, customers are very happy. But if you collect a lot of data and you don't manage to deliver that personalization, then that becomes when people question, how come you're collecting so much data? What happens to my data? Right, so I think definitely when it comes, it's not even a question that personalization, personalized service, offer, messaging, and it doesn't always have to be like a discount code. It can be the right information. It can be social proof, because I can recognize that you want to buy something, but you are not sure yet. So it can be like social proof that others are purchasing the same, for the customer to have that assurance, right? So personalization takes many different form and shape. But it boils down to how well you actually collect, disclose, and use that data to deliver what I like to call the data value exchange. So given enough value, customers are happy to provide that data, especially in Asian context.
Yeah, I think as long as you're showing you're using it well, I'm like, take it.
Yeah,
take everything you know about me.
Make it better.
I know there's actually quite a lot of B2B service-based businesses, and sometimes when we think about how do we personalize something for a B2B specific, I mean, you can answer just not B2B specific, but if you have anything, I know you do a lot in the B2B space, how can like a B2B or service-based offering think about personalization?
Yeah, I think what Quinn said, data is so important, but I don't see any B2B brands doing it yet. I think the most personalization we get is the first name and company name in an email or a message. Like, I think my favorite personalization, like you say a lot of data, like is Spotify, right? So I'll listen to like an artist on Spotify, and then it recommends me in the artist radio or whatever. And say, how do you know I like this song? Wow, because you have all those data points. Same with YouTube and TikTok as well. Like you watch the podcast and then, sorry, I'm a marketer, right? And then they'll pitch you other podcasts that you possibly could like. So it has all those data points. So in B2B, I've not seen it done very well yet because we don't have the data. So like we have to work with Quinn to get the data. And it depends, like, so tomorrow there's a lot of experts on AI. So once you have the data, it's how you process the data and come up with different ways to actually nurture that lead or that customer. So that data and processing is very important. So I love Spotify's personalization.
Yeah, Spotify, I don't know if anyone has seen this, but they've taken that to a whole new level now where they make you playlists for different times of the day. And it will be like on a Monday afternoon, you normally listen to like aggressive rock. So here's an aggressive rock playlist. On a Tuesday, you listen to like indie acoustic. Here you go, here's your Tuesday. Like it's insane how well they personalize.
And the year in review.
Oh yeah, we love the year in review every year. Miley Cyrus, top of my list. All right, what I'm going to do, I know there's been some, hopefully, questions come up. There's a QR code at the top there on Slido. If you've got any questions for Bob or Quinn, if you could put them up there. I've got one at the top, which is for Bob.
Oh,
And
why is it?
Yeah, can you monetize content from LinkedIn? It's technically nothing to do with loyalty, but we'll let it slide. Can you monetize content from LinkedIn?
Oh, thank you for that question. I'm a marketer. I'll take full advantage of this question. So if you go to my LinkedIn profile, and a lot of you have, there's a button on top called Join the LinkedIn Business Club. It's $80 per month. You pay $80 and you get a 30 minutes call with me and you get access to all my workshops every month. So that's how I monetize. About 50 people pay me $80 per month. It's my OnlyFans on LinkedIn. So I'm the pioneer of OnlyFans on LinkedIn. What's that? Anyway, I also do training. I get speaking engagements from LinkedIn. I monetize it fully. I get a lot of my trainings, my clients from LinkedIn. I do webinars every week, so if you're free, you can join the webinars. And actually, I got sponsors for my posts as well. So I'm trying to build this. It's not big here in Southeast Asia yet, but I'm trying to build B2B influencers, getting people to sponsor my posts and content. So that's it.
You're a LinkedIn influencer.
Yeah.
All right, we have another question up there. And Quinn, I'll get you to answer. I haven't even read it yet, but I'll get you to answer. What are the most effective strategies to captivate and retain audience attention in an age of information overload and distractions? That's a big question.
Again, it's a big question. Somebody is thinking really hard. Look, you're right. Like audience attention, we are all trained to be bored after 4 seconds, literally 4 seconds. And is this for me? Yes, no. So we make that decision all the time. I think first and foremost, right, for brands in general, for me, it's so important to develop that consistency across all the different channels. Imagine if you have a customer who interact with you through so many different channels, your homepage, your Facebook, your Instagram. I mean, Facebook not so much, but Instagram, TikTok, and then receiving emails from you, which is something that is not so much talked about, but there's the social media, which is, one-to-many, and then there's personalized channel like SMS, email, where you're actually receiving direct communication deals from brands. And if they are not consistent, that doesn't help, right? Having said that, I think I just love how, what I notice about, social media content creator, whether it's like business or individuals, is they have mastered the art of storytelling. Like, have you noticed how, they always start with something, and number 4 will surprise you. Or, something happened to this woman. What happened next will surprise you. So that's an element of storytelling. That's like a hook to take your attention, and then, getting through the arc of attention, and then ending the story with something delightful, surprising. So that's really storytelling, and that's something that that I think like everybody needs to master now. If you want to stand out, if you want your message to get across, and that's exactly like even for us when we express our opinion, we can't just say A, you do A, you do B, you do C. No, we talk about our experience, right? That's storytelling. So at the end of the day, that's the one thing that still help people resonate with it.
There's my favorite example of this. I think last year or the year before, people say, only no one wants to watch long form. And there was a lady in America, I don't know if anyone saw this, on TikTok, and she shared a story about like her crazy ex-husband that lied and cheated and did all these things. And it was like 18 hours of content. It was like 80 TikTok videos in a row, and people watched them all. Like, it was the most riveting. I watched them all. It was the most riveting story I've ever heard. And I sat there, not 17 hours in a row, but over the week, I just couldn't shoot. It was like watching feature-length films over and over again. And I was like, if someone tells a good story, you will listen.
Sorry, sorry, by the way, can I?
Oh,
Can
yeah,
I?
sure.
Just to add on that, I think, Bob, I've checked out your YouTube video. Don't look scared.
Yeah.
I'm going to praise you. I think one thing that is done very well there is, it can be like a 45 minutes discussion, right? You're taking like 10 seconds, 5 seconds of like pure insight, like super interesting or super insightful things, put it on top. So like in the first, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds, I know,
That's true.
this is for me. I will spend time. I may not sit in one sitting, but I want to finish this podcast because this guy sounds like there's a lot of insight coming from him, right? So I think that's also, I don't know if you call it a trick or a strategy, but I really like it.
Yeah, it's a strategy. So yeah, thanks to Elton who does the editing. So he's in front here, does all the magic. So yeah, it's a strategy because YouTube actually measures who watches the video for the first 30 seconds. So to make sure at least you finish the 30 seconds, they put the trailer in front. So like the most exciting parts of the podcast. I think especially I want to address this when it comes to B2B, this question. You don't have to be, let's put the biggest YouTuber out. You don't have to be Mr. Beast, right? In Malaysia, you don't have to be KJ. So everyone has a niche. So to be relevant, how to retain your audience attention. Let's say if you do a podcast about logistics, right? Super boring, right? But you have a logistics audience. Imagine here. So like people ask me, there's so many podcasts out there. If you're not Tony Robbins, nobody listen to you. I say, you don't have to be Tony Robbins. You're in Perth, right, Jordan? Imagine if you are the number one podcast in Perth. You get all the business leaders in Perth. Like mine is Asia, is big. But if you do it for Perth, and you get everyone in Perth knows you, everyone listens, you're the number one in Perth. That's enough. That's enough for a lot of opportunity, a lot of things. So when it comes to audience retention, it's similar to Spotify, right? So you get different people listening to different music. You can dominate a niche. Like she can talk about CX, you can have a CX series, right? A customer service, a data series. We have AI. You can have an AI podcast. There are a lot of niches for you to dominate. You don't have to be TV. You don't have to be MediaCorp or Media Prima, right? You can dominate that niche, and even dominating that niche itself is big, right? So that's how you retain customer attention. Be relevant to a very small niche.
I think about one of my favorite TikTokers is Tim the Lawnmower Man. Like, I love mowing my lawn. I'm so proud of my garden. And it's such a specific niche, but I will watch lawn mowing videos all the time. I love it. So it says a lot about me. Okay. Do we have any other questions coming through? Make sure you put them up. I've got lots of questions. I could go all day. I don't think it would be a marketing panel without talking about Gen Zs. Everyone always wants to know about Gen Zs. So do you have any tips specifically for a Gen Z audience? Maybe whoever wants to start.
Gen Z, I think every marketer, when we talk about Gen Z, there's a collective side. Like the most up and coming cohort of the consumers, and so demanding in terms of, obviously quality, price point, but also with Gen Z, like the couple of things that always stand out to me is short attention span, like what we have already talked about, and just that demand of a brand that stands for something more, So again, I go back to like, how do you address short attention span, build your collective organizational capability to tell stories, right? How do you, and in terms of your alignment, in terms of authenticity and your brand values, that's just something that needs to be built, and it can be anything. Like for example, Shane is a cloth retailing store chain that is, for me, not my thing, right? Completely misalignment with my personal values of sustainability. So for them, it's about innovation, very fast kind of response to trends, cheap and decent enough quality, and help you to be on trend, right? So not my thing, but they do collect a cult following because they deliver on that promise. Same thing with like, Ryanair. Like, because I travel to Europe every year, and, when we talk about traveling within Europe, it's usually Ryanair. And if we are talking about low-cost carrier in Southeast Asia, and before I ever took Ryanair, I'm like, I take like low-cost carrier, how bad can it get? Oh boy, I was wrong. It's, like their service is none, right? It's really about taking you from one place to another. There's no service. It's not an experience. Forget about it. It's about a transportation that takes you from one place to another. However, that's their brand, and that's their brand promise, and they deliver, right? Cheap, no fuss free. You get from one place to another. That's it. And so I have a lot of respect. Whether I have that alignment or not, I think I have a lot of respect to brands that really are seeing their value so well that they deliver through, and it's actually conducted through their people, not through the brand team, right? So going back to like Gen Z, I think that's really where it's at.
I'm going to make sure that we have time to answer this question, and Bob, I'll see if you've got any thoughts on it. I'm putting you guys on the spot with these, only because we haven't spoke much about charities and not-for-profits yet today, and there is so many out there now. If you want to donate $100, you have your pick of thousands of charities. So brand loyalty and getting people to want to donate to you is actually very, very tricky. So do you have any tips, specifically, they've talked about social media strategy, social media or just general marketing strategy for a non-for-profit or a charity?
Actually don't.
You can pass over? You're like, no comment, pass on.
Look, super
Get on the
hard.
podcast.
But however, soft plug for me, I talked about She Loves Data earlier. That is a non-profit. We don't accept donation in terms of money, by the way, but in terms of time and service, yes, right? So She Loves Data, a non-profit organization that we set out, 6-7 years ago, when the co-founders were kind of in the data field, and every single meeting that she went to, where are all the women? We don't see women in data as much, and that gave birth to She Loves Data, where the original mission was to get more women into data, and now it has evolved more into like just diversity in general, in experience, in gender, and so on. So for us, social media, we do all the usual play, but ultimately I think it's about like user-generated content, in the sense that let the feature, we always feature our volunteers, what their experience is like, what they get out of it, because that's the most authentic thing there is, right? If you are not volunteering, if you're not getting paid to do something, that's really a true passion, right? So that is something that we really feature a lot, to get them the spotlight, and to get them to talk about what resonates with them.
I think that authenticity kind of trend is going to go across any industry or any type of business to really foster loyalty. All right, I know we're almost out of time, so I'm going to get both of you to answer this question. Thinking forward, thinking in the future, what do you think could be a key trend, a key way of doing things, a platform people should look at? What do you think the next 5 years looks like in terms of creating brand loyalty? What's your...
Back to the previous question a bit. So any non-profits in the room, I would love to collaborate on the podcast. We do collaborate with non-profits. My marketer, what key trends? Podcasting. So anyway, would love to feature your story. I think a lot of podcasts die. A lot of videos die. What makes me different as a podcaster or content creator? I'm a marketer first. Every opportunity I get, I distribute it, right? So that's why my podcast has grown okay speed. So I think the key is, yes, text, images, I think are the past 10 years. If you can get your video out there, whether it's shorts, podcasts, or whatever it is, get your brand's voice out there, like authenticity, share about your brand, maybe speak on the podcast about why you're passionate about these causes. Like I'm passionate about animals, so I might get animals foundations on the pod. So I think the next trend is really bridging the gap between you and the customer, so you can speak to them. Or content images, it's overdone. AI writes a lot. So I think a couple of things. I think one is of course I would say podcasting, because it especially video, then you get to get your brand's voice out there literally. Secondly is working with influencers. And this is not new. This was it 10 years ago. But because of AI, now nobody trusts what you write anymore. No, yeah, everyone can write, right? No one trusts it. But if you work with an influencer, especially B2B ones, LinkedIn ones, right? And then you get your brand out there with someone, because no one, now with AI, we trust humans in the end of the day. So these are the two trends that I'm seeing coming. AI disrupts a lot of things, but in the end of the day, we want to work with humans.
The podcast, I saw something the other day, someone said about this, and I was like, that is really true about when you're trying to disrupt people when they're watching TV and doing other things and distracted. Podcasts and audio is one of the only ways you can get people, like when they're driving, as an example, when they're not distracted. Well, they're technically distracted by the road, but they're not distracted by other things. Like audio is a medium that actually can deliver to people when they don't have other screens in front of them. So in case you missed it, get on the podcast. And Quinn.
So I couldn't agree more. I think podcasts, and I shared with you, so this is not just because we're on the panel and I have to say that, but I shared with you before that I was like a very early adopter of podcasts since very early day, when only like the really big podcasts survive, right? There's not so many niche podcasts, and it has grown so much as a medium. I think mainly because of just that intimacy about like hearing somebody speak right into your ear. That's just like that emotional connection, and of course, without, again, it goes back to storytelling. You know, without images, all you have is your story, your words, right? So I definitely agree there. I would disagree like slightly with you when you mention that, and I hope it's okay, when you mention that, you know, when in the age of AI, like we value people and human connection. That is not the part that I disagree with. The part that I would just highlight is that you really cannot, as brands, underestimate the power of how much consumers' behavior is going to change with AI. Because AI is not just Gen AI, it's not just ChatGPT and write this brand statement for me, right? Think about how people are planning their vacation. Now people are typing into ChatGPT and ask, plan a 4-day vacation in Rome for me and highlight the restaurants. Think about what's happening behind that, right? First of all, it means all the opportunities for people to just discover your brands has gone away. Secondly, where is AI tapping? These, you know, Gen AI algorithm is tapping into providing the answer to you is the established major kind of newspapers and source of information. So as a niche publication, it's very hard to get your voice through, especially when it goes through aggregators. That's going to put more weight into known publications, right? So that's something that I think definitely needs to be watched. I don't have an answer. I think anybody who says they have an answer is going to be premature. It's developing so fast, but it's just about like really understanding what's noise and what, you know, what is the mechanism and kind of adapting to it.
I like that. So Quinn brought up a very good point. So your customers will start searching on AI right now. All right. So they will search for Ask ChatGPT to come out with itinerary. They'll ask like sort of like what are the marketing conferences to attend in 2024. They'll ask AI instead. And some AI tools have the latest technology. We were just doing some search with Perplexity at the back, and our podcast came out. Right. So anyway. So the key here. Last week I was at a conference. The next question that normally comes is how do you how to future-proof yourself against AI? People will not search on Google so much anymore. They will start searching on AI. So the thing is, if you try Gemini, right, or if you try Perplexity or whatever, except ChatGPT does not have any references. But most AI tools that you search for will give you references on the right side. And when we did a search just now, our podcast came out as one of the references for Elton. So for searching for Elton, right? So if you want your brand to be AI-proof, to be ChatGPT-proof, make sure you're featured in publications. Make sure you are, just now she said references, how to get into sites. So if you're mentioned as the top tools or top profiles featured on any magazines. So when AI finds answers, they look for references, not your website. They look for, it's common PR, but you know, they look for references to give you the best answers. So, you know, getting on podcasts, getting on publications help you to future-proof yourself against, you know, searching on AI.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we are on time. Well, maybe over time a little bit. But there was heaps and heaps of really good insights. Hopefully everyone took some notes and took some of those down. We are going to wrap up this panel so we can hear from Quinn before the day ends. So if you can all give a round of applause to our two lovely panelists. Thank you, guys.